The day had started like many others, slow and heavy, as if the city itself was tired of moving forward. The man woke up before sunrise, not because he wanted to, but because his body no longer knew how to rest. Years of early mornings and late nights had trained him to rise before the alarm. He sat on the edge of his bed for a long moment, staring at the wall, listening to the quiet of his small apartment. There were no voices, no footsteps, no sound of someone else moving around. That silence had become normal, but it never became easy. He washed his face, made a simple cup of tea, and stood by the window. Outside, the streets were waking up slowly. A few lights flickered on in nearby buildings. Somewhere far away, a bus horn echoed. He finished his tea without tasting it, put on his jacket, and picked up his keys. Another day of driving awaited him. The taxi was parked where he always left it. It was not new, and it showed signs of age, but it was clean and reliable. He treated it with care, the way someone treats the only thing they truly depend on. As he sat in the driver's seat and started the engine, he took a deep breath. Driving was not just his job. It was his escape. On the road, his thoughts had somewhere to go. The early hours were quiet. A few short rides, mostly workers heading to factories or offices. He knew their faces, but not their stories. That suited him fine. Listening without being known had become his habit. Between rides, his mind often drifted back to the past, to a time when life felt fuller, warmer. He pushed those thoughts away and focused on the road. By late afternoon, the city had changed its mood. Traffic grew heavier, horns louder, people more impatient. He felt the weight in his shoulders, but he kept going. Each ride meant a little more money, a little more hope that he could make it through the week without worry. When the sun began to sink, painting the sky in soft orange tones, he considered calling it a day. Just one more ride, he told himself. The request came in through his phone, not far from where he was parked. He hesitated for a second, then accepted. The pickup point was near a busy shopping area. He drove there and stopped by the curb. People walked past, some laughing, some rushing, some staring at their phones. Then he saw her. She stood a few steps away, holding a small handbag, dressed neatly but not loudly. There was something calm about her, yet her posture suggested nervousness. She looked around once, then walked toward the taxi. When she opened the back door and sat down, a soft scent filled the car, not strong, just noticeable. "Good evening," she said. Her voice made him pause for a brief moment. It was polite, gentle, and somehow familiar. He answered with a simple greeting and asked for the destination. She gave him an address across the city. He nodded and started driving. For the first few minutes, neither of them spoke. The sounds of traffic filled the space between them. He watched the road through the windshield, but his mind kept returning to that voice. It stirred something he could not name. "You've been driving for a long time, haven't you?" she asked suddenly. He glanced at her through the mirror. She was looking out the window, not directly at him. "Yes," he replied. "Many years." "That must be tiring," she said. "Long hours, little rest?" He gave a small smile that she could not see clearly. "You get used to it," she nodded, as if she understood more than she should. After a short pause, she spoke again. "Do you enjoy it?" He thought about the question. "Some days. Other days, I just do it because I have to." She was quiet after that. The traffic slowed as they reached a crowded intersection. Red lights reflected on the windshield. He noticed her hands resting in her lap, fingers moving slightly as if she was trying to calm herself. "Do you have family?" she asked. The question caught him off guard. Passengers often asked about the weather or traffic, not about family. Still, he answered honestly. "I had a family. Now it's just me." "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to." "It's fine," he interrupted gently. "You didn't know." He expected the conversation to end there, but she continued, her voice softer now. "Did you have children?" He swallowed. "One." There was a pause so long that he wondered if she had changed her mind about talking. Then she asked, "Are you close?" He shook his head before remembering she could not see him clearly. "Not anymore." Her breathing changed slightly, as if she had taken a deeper breath. What happened? He hesitated. He did not usually share personal details with strangers, but something about her presence made it difficult to refuse. Life happened, he said. Mistakes. Silence. Time. The words felt heavy as they left his mouth. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. She was young, he continued, without realizing it. I was trying to survive. Maybe I forgot to listen. Maybe she felt alone. The woman in the back seat leaned forward slightly. Do you regret it? Every part of him wanted to say no to protect himself. But the truth came out instead. Every day. The car moved again as the light turned green. He felt exposed, as if he had opened a door he usually kept locked. She left. The woman asked carefully. Yes, he replied. Years ago, we stopped talking. I don't even know where she lives now. Another silence filled the car, thicker than before. He expected her to change the subject, but she didn't. Do you think about her? She asked. He laughed quietly, a sound without joy. There isn't a day I don't. He watched her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes looked glossy, though the lighting made it hard to tell. She quickly looked away. The city lights blurred past as they drove. The distance between them felt strange, not just physical, but emotional, like a bridge stretching across years of unspoken words. You sound like a good father, said suddenly. He shook his head again. A good father wouldn't have lost his child. She pressed her lips together. Sometimes children leave not because they don't love, but because they are afraid. He frowned slightly. Afraid of what? Of being a disappointment, she said quietly. Her words hit him harder than he expected. He felt a tightness in his chest. I never wanted her to feel that way. I know, she replied. The certainty in her voice made him glance at the mirror again. This time, their eyes met briefly. Something passed between them, something unspoken. He cleared his throat. You seem to understand this very well, she gave a small smile. Everyone carries something, she said. The rest of the ride continued with short exchanges, but the air between them remained charged. He found himself noticing small details, the way she paused before speaking, the way she chose her words carefully, the way her voice sometimes trembled and then steadied again as they neared the destination. His heart felt heavier than when the ride began. He slowed the car and stopped near the address she had given. It was a quiet street, lined with tall buildings and soft streetlights. He turned slightly in his seat. We're here. She did not move right away. Instead, she looked at the back of his seat, then at the window, as if gathering courage. Thank you, she said finally. For the ride? You're welcome, he replied. Take care, she hesitated, then added, I hope. I hope things get better for you, he nodded. I hope so too. She stepped out of the car and closed the door gently. He watched her walk away, her figure slowly blending into the evening shadows. For reasons he could not explain, he stayed parked for a few extra seconds, watching until she disappeared from view. As he drove away, his thoughts returned to his daughter, stronger than before. The woman's words echoed in his mind, especially the part about fear and disappointment. He felt a deep ache mixed with something else, something that felt like a question waiting to be answered. He did not know it yet, but that ride was not over. Not really. It had only begun. That night, after the city finally began to quiet down, the man parked his taxi outside his building and sat inside longer than usual. The engine was off, but his hands still rested on the steering wheel, as if he was afraid to let go. The ride from earlier kept replaying in his mind. The woman's voice, her questions, her strange understanding of his pain. He told himself she was just another passenger, yet his heart did not believe it. Inside his apartment, the silence greeted him again. He placed his keys on the table and took off his jacket. Normally, he would turn on the television for background noise, but tonight he didn't. He sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. Memories he had learned to keep buried began to surface, slow and heavy. He remembered the day his daughter left. It had not been dramatic. No shouting, no slammed doors. Just a quiet conversation filled with tension and words that missed their meaning. He had been tired, worried about money, worried about the future. She had tried to talk about her dreams, her plans, her fears. He listened, but not enough. When she walked out that door, he thought she just needed time. Days turned into weeks, weeks into years. He lay back on the bed and closed his eyes. Sleep did not come easily. When it finally did, it was restless. The next morning, he woke up with the same heavy feeling in his chest. He went through his routine on autopilot. Tea jacket, keys. As he drove through the streets, he found himself hoping, without reason, that he might see the woman again. The thought made him shake his head. Life did not work that way. The day passed slowly. Each passenger felt distant, their voices blending together. He answered politely, but his mind was elsewhere. Every time a young woman entered the taxi, he glanced at the mirror, his heart lifting for a second before settling back down. By afternoon, he felt foolish for expecting anything. Still, the feeling did not leave him. In the early evening, as traffic thickened again, his phone buzzed with another ride request. He accepted, without checking the details. When he reached the pickup point, he recognized the street immediately. It was the same area as the night before. His breath caught. She was standing there again. This time she noticed him first. Their eyes met through the windshield, and something changed in her expression. Relief mixed with nervousness. She opened the door and sat in the same seat as before. "Good evening," she said. "Good evening," he replied. Trying to sound normal, she gave him a destination. Different from the last one, but still across the city. As he pulled into traffic, he felt his heart beating faster. "I wasn't sure I would get you again," she said after a moment. "Neither was I," he admitted. There was a small smile in her voice. "Maybe it's luck." "Maybe," he said, though it felt like something else. For a few minutes, they rode in silence. This time, it was not awkward. It felt thoughtful. It's like both of them were choosing their next words carefully. "I thought about our conversation," she said softly. "So did I," he replied. She took a deep breath. "You said you don't know where your daughter is now?" "That's right," he said. "Did you ever try to find her?" The question stung. At first, yes. Then I told myself she didn't want to be found. She looked down at her hands. "Sometimes people want to be found, but don't know how to come back." He felt that tightness again in his chest. "If she came back," he said slowly, "I wouldn't ask for explanations. I just want her to stay." Her breath trembled slightly. "Even if she changed?" "Everyone changes," he replied. "I would just be glad she's alive and well." She turned her face toward the window, blinking rapidly. The city lights reflected in her eyes. "You really believe that?" she asked. "Yes," he said without hesitation. They stopped at a red light. The moment stretched between them. "My father used to say similar things," she said quietly. "Used to?" he asked. She nodded. "I didn't believe him at the time. He wanted to ask more, but something told him to wait." The road ahead opened up, and the taxi moved smoothly. He felt like he was driving through more than just streets. He was driving through memories, regrets, and hopes that had never fully died. "You seem very thoughtful today," he said gently. She smiled weakly. "So do you." As the ride continued, she began asking him about his past. Where he grew up, how he started driving, what he wanted when he was young. He answered honestly, surprised by how easy it felt to talk to her. She listened closely, never interrupting, never rushing him. "And what about you?" he asked at last. "What do you do?" She hesitated. "I work with people, helping them solve problems." "That sounds important," he said. "It feels that way sometimes," she replied. They shared a small laugh. Easing the tension as they approached her destination, she grew quiet again. When he stopped the car, she did not reach for the door right away. "There's something I want to say," she said. He turned slightly, his heart pounding. "I'm listening." She struggled for words. "Some truths are hard to say out loud. Not because they hurt others, but because they change everything." He nodded slowly. "I understand." She looked at him through the mirror, her eyes full of emotion. "If someone kept a secret to protect you, would you forgive them?" "Yes," he said instantly. "If their heart was in the right place?" Her lips trembled into a fragile smile. "That's good to know." She stepped out of the car, but this time she did not walk away right away. She turned back. "Will you be driving tomorrow?" she asked. "Yes," he said, surprised. "Good," she replied. "I hope I see you again." "So do I," he said. As she disappeared into the building, his hands shook slightly. He sat there for a long moment, feeling like his life was standing on the edge of something big. That night, sleep avoided him again, but this time, it was not only sadness that kept him awake. It was anticipation. A quiet, fragile hope he had not allowed himself to feel in years. He did not yet know the truth, but his heart was beginning to sense it. The ride was no longer just a coincidence. It was becoming a path back to something he thought he had lost forever. The next morning began with a feeling as the man had not experienced in a long time. It was not happiness, and it was not peace, but something close to alertness, as if his heart had woken up before his body. He sat at the small table in his apartment, holding a cup of tea that had already gone cold, thinking about the woman from the taxi. Her words, her pauses, the way she looked at him through the mirror. Everything felt too meaningful to ignore. He told himself to stay calm. Life had disappointed him before when he allowed hope to grow too fast. Still, as he stepped out and locked the door, he felt lighter than usual. The city greeted him with its usual noise, but today it felt different, less heavy. He drove with more focus, more awareness. Every street felt like part of a story moving forward. By midday, his phone buzzed again with a ride request. When he saw the pickup location, his heart skipped. It was her neighborhood again. He hesitated, then accepted. She was already waiting. This time, she smiled openly when she saw him. Not polite, not careful, but real. "I was hoping," she said as she sat down. "So was I," he replied. They exchanged a quiet laugh, one filled with nervous energy as he started driving. She looked around the taxi as if seeing it properly for the first time. "You keep it very clean," she said. "It's my second home," he replied. She nodded slowly. "I can tell." The road ahead was clear, and the taxi moved smoothly. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence felt warm now, not tense. "There's something I need to ask," he said finally. She turned toward him. "Go ahead, why do you keep choosing my taxi?" She looked down, then smiled sadly. "Because it feels safe." He accepted the answer, though it raised more questions than it answered. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "I want to tell you a story. Not everything, but enough." "I'm listening," he said. "There was a girl," she began, "who grew up watching her father work all the time. She loved him deeply, but she also felt invisible. When she tried to talk about her dreams, she felt like a burden. He felt a tightness in his chest." He kept his eyes on the road. "That girl left," she continued. "Not because she didn't love her father, but because she needed to prove something to herself." "Did she?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she said. "She worked hard. Very hard. She built a life she was proud of." "It's good," he said, his voice thick. "But success doesn't erase loneliness," she added. "And it doesn't replace a parent." He nodded slowly. "No, it doesn't." She took a deep breath. The girl wanted to come back many times, but fear kept stopping her. Fear of what? He asked. Fear that her father would see her as a stranger? Fear that he would feel small next to her success? The words landed like a blow. "A father would never feel small because of his child," he said firmly. "He would feel proud." She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. I wish she had believed that sooner. They stopped at a traffic light. The moment stretched. The city around them seemed to fade. "She sounds brave," he said. "She was scared," the woman replied, but she kept going anyway. The taxi moved again, but neither of them felt like they were traveling forward. It felt like they were circling closer to the truth. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. If your daughter were sitting in this taxi right now, what would you say to her?" He did not answer immediately. His throat tightened. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "I would say I'm sorry. For not listening better? For being tired instead of being present." She closed her eyes for a moment, and then, she asked. And then I would tell her that nothing she does could ever make me stop loving her. Her shoulders shook slightly. She turned away, pretending to look out the window, I think, she said after a moment. That would mean everything to her. They reached a quiet road and he slowed the car. His hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. There's more, she said. But I don't know if I'm ready to say it yet. That's okay, he replied. I can wait. She looked at him with surprise. You would? Yes, he said simply. Some things take time. When the ride ended, she did not leave right away. She stayed seated, her hands folded tightly. Thank you, she said, for listening, for being patient. Thank you, he replied, for trusting me. She stepped out, but before closing the door, she said, Tomorrow, I want to tell you everything. His heart skipped. I'll be here. That night, he sat alone in his apartment, staring at an old photograph he had kept hidden in a drawer. It showed a younger version of himself, smiling with a little girl on his shoulders. He traced the image with his finger. Tomorrow, he whispered. The next day came slowly. Each hour felt stretched when the pickup request finally came. His hands shook as he accepted it. She entered the taxi quietly, her face serious. I'm ready, she said. He pulled the car into a calm street and parked. You're my daughter, she said. The world seemed to stop. For a long moment, he could not breathe. He turned in his seat fully this time and looked at her face. The eyes he knew, the curve of the smile, the familiarity he had felt from the first moment. It's you, he whispered. She nodded, tears falling freely now. I'm sorry it took so long. He reached out, then stopped, afraid he was imagining everything. May I? He asked. She nodded again. He pulled her into a gentle embrace. Years of distance collapsed into that single moment. He felt her shoulders shake as she cried, and he held her tighter, afraid to let go. I thought I lost you, he said, his voice breaking. You never did, she replied. I was just lost. They stayed like that for a long time, letting the truth settle. When they finally pulled apart, he wiped his eyes and laughed softly. You've grown so much, she smiled through tears. So have you? They talked for hours. About her life, her work, her fears. About his loneliness, his regrets. Every word healed something small. I was afraid you'd feel ashamed, she admitted. Ashamed? He repeated. I've never been more proud. The taxi sat still as the sun began to set. That day did not erase the past, but it changed the future. The ride that began as a coincidence became a reunion, and for the first time in many years, both of them felt whole again. The moment after the truth was spoken felt unreal. The taxi was still parked on the quiet street, the engine off, the world outside moving on as if nothing important had happened. Inside, everything had changed. The man sat facing his daughter, studying her face again and again, as if he was afraid she might disappear if he looked away. I can't believe you're here, he said softly. Right in front of me. She let out a shaky breath. I was scared you wouldn't want to see me. He shook his head immediately. There was never a day I didn't want that. They sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of years settle between them. It was not an uncomfortable silence. It was heavy, but honest. I should have told you sooner, she said. Every time I got close, I stopped myself. Why? He asked gently. She looked down at her hands. Because I saw how hard your life was. I thought if you knew how well I was doing, you'd feel smaller, or think I didn't need you anymore. He leaned back slightly, absorbing her words. I felt small when I thought you had forgotten me, he said. Not because of success, because of silence. Tears filled her eyes again. I never forgot you. I know that now, he replied. They decided to drive, not toward any destination, but simply to move. The taxi rolled slowly through familiar streets. Street lights flickered on one by one, lighting the road ahead. Tell me about your life, he said. All of it. I don't want pieces anymore. She nodded. I left with very little. I stayed with friends at first, then small rented rooms. I worked during the day and studied at night. Some days I was so tired I cried myself to sleep.
Owie.
His chest tightened. Why didn't you call me? Because every time I picked up the phone, I remembered how disappointed you looked when I talked about leaving, she said. I thought I had broken your trust. I was worried, he said. Not disappointed. She smiled sadly. I wish we had said that to each other back then. So do I, he replied. She continued telling her story. How she slowly built a career, how she learned to stand on her own, how she helped others who felt lost. He listened without interrupting, pride growing quietly in his heart. You became strong, he said. I had to, she replied. But strength doesn't replace family. They stopped near a small park. The place was almost empty, just a few people walking dogs. He turned off the engine. Do you remember this place? He asked. She looked around, surprised. Yes, you used to bring me here on Sundays. He smiled faintly. You liked the swings. She laughed through tears. I pretended I didn't, but I did. They both laughed softly, the sound healing something old. I kept that photograph, he said quietly. The one of you on my shoulders. Her eyes widened. You still have it? Yes, he said. I couldn't let it go. They talked until the sky grew darker. About small memories, about moments they missed, about things they wished they had said sooner. I'm angry, she admitted at one point. Not at you exactly. At the years we lost. That anger is fair, he said. I feel it too. But I don't want to live there, she continued. I want to move forward. So do I, he said. When the taxi finally stopped in front of her building, neither of them rushed to end the moment. Will you come with me? She asked. Just for tea. He hesitated only a second. Yes. Inside her apartment, everything felt unfamiliar to him, yet comforting. The place was neat, warm, and filled with quiet signs of her life. Books on shelves. A small plant by the window. I imagined this place 100 times, he said. I imagined you standing here, she replied. They sat at the table, talking late into the night. Some moments were heavy, some light. Sometimes words failed, and silence spoke instead. I want you to be part of my life, she said seriously. Not as a visitor. As my father. His eyes filled again. I want that more than anything. They made a promise then. No more long silences. No more guessing. When he finally left, walking back to his taxi, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Belonging. That night, for the first time in a long time, he slept deeply. The next days were filled with careful steps, phone calls, short visits, shared meals. Learning each other again. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes old habits surfaced. Sometimes words came out wrong, but they didn't walk away. One evening, as they sat together, she said, I used to watch you drive away every morning. I never thought I'd sit beside you again, he smiled. Life surprises us, yes, she said. If we let it, they were no longer just fixing the past. They were building something new, and for both of them. That felt like the hardest and most beautiful journey yet. The days that followed felt quiet but full, like a room that had finally been furnished after years of emptiness. The man woke up each morning with a different kind of energy. The weight that once sat on his chest had not completely vanished, but it no longer crushed him. It reminded him that he still had something to protect, something to care for. He and his daughter moved carefully at first. They did not rush into each other's lives as if nothing had happened. They understood that years of distance could not be erased in a few conversations. Still, they showed up. That was new. That mattered. Some mornings, she called him before he started driving just to say good morning. The first time it happened, he stared at the phone for a long moment after the call ended, his eyes wet, his lips trembling with a smile he could not control. Other days, he drove to her place after work. They cooked simple meals together. Nothing fancy. Rice, vegetables, tea. They talked about small things at first. Traffic, weather, work. Slowly. Deeper topics found their way into the space between them. There were moments of discomfort. Once, while sitting quietly, he said, I keep thinking I should have done more. She looked at him for a long time before replying. You did what you could with what you had, she said. I needed to learn who I was on my own. That part was mine, he nodded, letting the words settle. Another time, she admitted, sometimes I'm afraid I'll leave again. His heart tightened, but he did not panic. If you ever feel lost, he said, I'd rather you talk to me than disappear. Promise, she replied. That promise became their quiet agreement. The taxi. Once just a tool for survival, became something else. It became the place where their story changed direction. She asked to ride with him sometimes, not as a passenger, but as company. They drove through the city together, watching people hurry through their own lives. You meet so many stories, she said once. Yes, he replied. But I never thought mine would turn around like this. She smiled and leaned her head lightly against the seat. Neither did I. Not everything was easy. There were days when old pain surfaced without warning. A comment, a memory, a tone of voice. When it happened, they paused instead of pulling away. They learned to sit with the discomfort, to name it, to let it pass. One evening, after a long drive, he parked the taxi and stayed inside, staring ahead. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm afraid, he admitted. Of what? That this is too good. That I'll wake up and find out it was only a moment. She reached for his hand. I'm here, she said. Not just today. That simple sentence grounded him more than any promise ever could. As weeks passed, small changes appeared in his life. He laughed more easily. His posture softened. Even his neighbors noticed. You look different, one of them said. Happier. He smiled and replied, I found my way back to something I lost. He did not explain more. Some things felt sacred. One afternoon, she surprised him. I want you to meet someone, she said. His heart jumped. Who? People I work with. Friends. They know about you. He hesitated. What did you tell them? The truth, she said. That you're my father. That you're kind. That life was not easy for us. They went together. He sat quietly at first, listening as she spoke confidently, comfortably introducing him without hesitation. Pride filled his chest, steady and warm. Later that night, he said, I didn't feel out of place. It's because you're not, she replied. One weekend, she asked him to visit the old neighborhood, the place where they once lived together. He hadn't been back in years. They walked slowly through the streets. Some buildings had changed. Others looked exactly the same. This is where you used to wait for me after school, she said. He nodded. I was always worried you'd think I forgot. I knew you were there, she said. Even when I pretended I didn't care. They stood in front of the old building for a long time, neither of them speaking. I don't feel angry here anymore, she said finally. Neither do I, he replied. Letting go did not mean forgetting. It meant releasing the pain that no longer served them. As time went on, their bond grew steadier, less fragile, more real. They stopped walking on eggshells around each other. One evening, she said casually, You don't have to drive every day if you don't want to. He raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? You've worked hard enough, she said. You deserve rest too, he smiled. Driving keeps me alive. Then keep driving, she said. But not because you're alone. That was the difference. The taxi no longer felt like a place of escape. It felt like a bridge. Months later, on a quiet night, he picked up a young passenger who seemed nervous and unsure. As they drove, the passenger spoke about feeling lost, about leaving family behind, about fear. The man listened with patience he hadn't always had. At some point, he said gently, You'll realize that running away and finding yourself are not the same thing. The passenger nodded, grateful. When the ride ended, the man felt a strange sense of peace. His pain had turned into understanding. That night, he parked the taxi and went home, where his daughter was waiting. You look tired, she said. I am, he replied, but in a good way. They sat together, sharing tea. The room filled with comfortable silence. I'm glad I got into your taxi, she said suddenly. So am I, he replied. They both knew that if she had chosen a different car that night, Their lives might still be moving in separate directions. Fate did not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it came quietly on four wheels. Through a simple ride across the city, the man no longer measured his life by missed chances. He measured it by what he had now: connection, presence, love that survived distance. The taxi rides continued. The city kept moving. People came and went. But for him, every road felt lighter, because once, on an ordinary evening, one ride carried him back to his daughter, and that made every journey after worth taking. Life slowly settled into a new rhythm for both of them. But it was not the kind of calm that comes from forgetting the past. It was the calm that comes from finally facing it. The man continued driving his taxi, but now every day felt different. He no longer drove just to survive. He drove knowing someone was waiting for him at the end of the day. His daughter did not move back in with him. They both understood that love did not require sharing the same roof. Instead, they shared time, honesty, and presence. Some evenings they talked for hours. Other nights they simply sat in silence, comfortable in the fact that silence no longer meant distance. One evening, while driving together, she asked him something unexpected. "Do you ever think about stopping?" she asked. "Stopping what?" He replied, "Driving." She said, "Not forever. Just slowing down." He thought about it. For years, driving had been his only identity. Without it, he wasn't sure who he would be. "I don't know how to rest," he admitted. She nodded. "Neither did I for a long time." That night, the idea stayed with him. For the first time, rest did not feel like failure. It felt like permission. Days passed. Weeks followed. One afternoon, he received a message while parked near a cafe. It was from his daughter. "Can you come inside? I want you to meet someone." His stomach tightened. Still, he locked the taxi and walked in. Inside, he saw a young person sitting at a corner table. Nervous posture, tired eyes. Someone who looked like they were carrying too much. "This is someone I help mentor," his daughter explained. "They remind me of myself." The man nodded politely and sat down. As the conversation unfolded, he listened. The fear, the confusion, the pressure to succeed alone. He realized something then. His pain had become purpose. That evening, on the drive home, he said, "I think I understand now why you do what you do." She smiled. "I learned it from watching you survive." The words hit him harder than praise ever could. Not everything moved forward smoothly one day. He ran into someone from his past, someone who reminded him of old mistakes, old versions of himself he did not like remembering. The encounter shook him deeply. That night, he barely spoke. "She noticed, you don't have to protect me from your past," she said. "I want to know all of you." He hesitated, then finally spoke about things he had never said out loud: regrets, missed chances. Moments when he chose silence over courage. She listened without judgment. "I don't need you to be perfect," she said. "I just need you to be real." That sentence became another turning point. Slowly, he started changing his schedule. Fewer hours, more mornings at home. More meals eaten slowly instead of rushed. At first, it felt wrong, then it felt right. One night, while driving alone, he picked up a passenger who reminded him of his daughter years ago. Quiet, guarded, carrying unspoken pain. During the ride, the passenger said, "Do you ever regret staying?" The man thought carefully before answering. "No," he said. "I regret not speaking sooner." The passenger nodded, tears quietly falling. The ride ended, but the moment stayed. When he told his daughter about it later, she smiled softly. "You're helping people without even trying," she said. "I think I always was," he replied. "I just didn't know it mattered." As time moved on, his taxi became a place of listening, not escape. People opened up to him. He did not try to fix them. He simply stayed present. At home, his daughter grew stronger too. Not because she had healed completely, but because she no longer carried everything alone. One night she said, "I used to think coming back meant losing myself. And now?" he asked. "Now I know it means being whole." They both understood that healing was not a straight line. Some days were heavy. Others were light, but none of them were empty anymore. The city kept moving. Streets changed. People came and went. But one thing stayed constant. That single taxi ride had not. Just reunited a father and daughter. It had reshaped two lives, and the journey was still unfolding. Did not rush anymore. It moved at a pace that allowed both of them to breathe. The man noticed small changes in himself before anyone else did. He listened more. He reacted less. He no longer felt the need to explain his past to justify his present. The presence of his daughter had quietly given him permission to exist without apology. One afternoon, while driving alone, he parked near a river that cut through the city. He had passed this place thousands of times, but rarely stopped. He turned off the engine and stepped out. The air was calm. Water moved steadily, never stopping, never going backward. He stood there for a long time, realizing that life had done the same. It had kept moving even when he felt stuck. Later that evening, he told his daughter about it. "I stood there and realized, I can't change where the water has been," he said. "Only where it's going." She smiled. "That's all any of us can do." That night, they cooked together again. The conversation drifted from serious to light and back again. "The way real life always does? Do you remember how angry I used to be?" she asked suddenly. "Yes," he replied honestly. "I was angry at you," she continued, "but mostly I was angry at myself. I thought leaving meant strength. I didn't realize strength also means staying connected." He nodded. "I thought silence was patience. I didn't know it could feel like abandonment." They looked at each other. Understanding, settling deeper than words. Not every day felt like healing. Some mornings, he woke up heavy, memories pressing down without warning. On those days, he drove slower. He spoke less. His daughter noticed without asking too many questions. "You don't have to be okay every day," she reminded him once. "I know," he said. "I just forget sometimes." She squeezed his hand. "Then I'll remind you." The city, as always, kept offering lessons through strangers. One evening, he picked up an older passenger who spoke about losing contact with a child years ago. The pain in that voice felt familiar. "Do you think it's ever too late?" the passenger asked. The man paused before answering. "No," he said quietly, "but it does get harder the longer you wait." When the ride ended, the passenger thanked him with watery eyes. That night, the man told his daughter about it. "You saved someone today," she said. He shook his head. "I just told the truth. Sometimes that's enough," she replied. Weeks later, something unexpected happened. His taxi broke down. It wasn't a dramatic accident, just an engine that refused to cooperate anymore. He sat behind the wheel, hands resting uselessly, staring at the road ahead. For years, this car had been his lifeline. Without it, he felt exposed. When he called his daughter, she came immediately. They stood beside the silent taxi, traffic rushing past them. "You okay?" she asked. "I think so," he replied. "Just unsure about the car." She asked about who I am without it, he admitted. She leaned against the car. "You're not the taxi," she said gently. "It was just how you carried yourself through life." He considered that the repair would take time. Days, maybe weeks. At first, the sudden stillness unsettled him. No early mornings. No constant movement. Too much time to think, but something surprising happened. He started noticing life again. He walked more, sat in cafes, watched people, listened to the city without being inside it. One afternoon, he visited his daughter at work. He watched her speak with someone who was clearly struggling. Her patience, her calm presence, her ability to listen reminded him painfully of what he once wished he had done better. Afterward, he said, "You're very good at this." She shrugged. "I learned from mistakes. Mine and yours." He smiled. Then they weren't wasted. During those weeks, they talked more than ever. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They spoke about aging, about fear, about the quiet worry that comes with loving someone deeply. I'm afraid of losing you again, he admitted one night. She didn't dismiss it. So am I. They sat with that fear instead of running from it. When the taxi was finally repaired, he didn't rush back to work. I think I'll drive less, he said. She nodded. I was hoping you'd say that. He returned to driving slowly, intentionally, shorter shifts, fewer nights. One evening, while driving together, she said something that surprised him. Have you ever thought about teaching? Teaching what? He asked. Listening, she said. Understanding people. You do it naturally, he laughed. I learned it late. Late is still learning, she replied. The idea stayed with him. Months passed. The seasons changed. Their relationship settled into something steady and real. No longer fragile. No longer afraid of breaking with one wrong word. Then came a day neither of them expected. He received a letter. A simple envelope. Inside was a notice about the old apartment they once lived in together. The building was being sold. The letter stirred emotions he thought he had already made peace with. He showed it to his daughter. She read it quietly. Do you want to go there one last time? She asked. Yes, he said. With you. They walked through the old place together. Empty rooms. Faded walls. Echoes of laughter and arguments alike. I used to sit here and wait for you, he said. Pointing to a corner, I used to hide here when I was upset. She replied. They laughed softly. This place held a lot of pain, she said. And a lot of love, he added, before leaving. She turned to him. I'm glad we didn't stay stuck here, she said. So am I, he replied. That night, as they drove away, the man felt a sense of closure he hadn't known he needed. Life did not become perfect. There were still hard days, still misunderstandings, still moments of fear, but there was also trust, and trust changed everything. The man no longer saw his story as one of failure. It was a story of delay, and delay, he learned, does not erase meaning, it only deepens it. The man did not realize how much he had changed until someone from his past pointed it out. One afternoon, while waiting for a passenger, he heard a familiar voice call his name. He turned and saw an old coworker from years ago, someone who remembered him as quiet, distant, always tired. You look different, the person said, calmer. The man smiled politely but did not explain. Some changes were not meant to be explained. They were meant to be lived. That evening, as he drove home, he thought about how long it had taken him to arrive at this calm. He remembered the years when every day felt like survival, when rest felt dangerous, when love felt fragile. Now, love felt steady, like something that could be trusted. His daughter noticed the reflection in his eyes when he entered the room. Long day, she asked. Long life, he replied, half joking. She laughed and handed him a cup of tea. They sat together by the window, watching the city lights blink on one by one. Do you ever feel guilty for being okay now? He asked suddenly. She looked at him carefully. Sometimes, she said honestly, but then I remind myself that pain doesn't deserve loyalty. That sentence stayed with him. Over the next few weeks, something subtle but important began to shift. The man started receiving calls from people he had once driven. Passengers who remembered him as the driver who listened. One of them asked if he could meet for coffee. Another asked for advice. He was surprised. He had never thought of himself as someone people would return to. One afternoon, he met a young person who sat across from him, hands shaking slightly. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, the person admitted. The man leaned back and listened, just as he always did. I spent years thinking I had ruined everything, he said slowly. Turns out, I just took a longer road. The words felt true, even as he said them. That evening, he told his daughter about the meeting. You're becoming something new, she said. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? Someone who turns pain into guidance, she replied. He did not answer. But the idea stayed with him. Not all moments were peaceful. One night he had a dream that shook him deeply. In it, his daughter was leaving again, walking away without turning back. He woke up sweating, heart racing. It took him several minutes to remind himself that she was safe, that she had not disappeared. When he told her about the dream the next morning, he felt embarrassed. She listened carefully, then said, "Trauma doesn't leave quietly. It checks if the door is still open." "That's frightening," he admitted. "It's also normal," she replied. "We don't heal by forgetting. We heal by staying present." That day, he chose to stay present instead of distracted. He took fewer rides. He walked with her through a nearby market. They laughed over small things. He noticed how easily she smiled now compared to before. At one point, she stopped and looked at him. "You're really here," she said. "So are you," he replied. That evening, while cooking, she asked him something unexpected. "Did you ever think about what kind of father you wanted to be before everything went wrong?" He considered the question carefully. "I wanted to be dependable," he said. "I thought that meant working nonstop." She nodded. "I wanted you to be available. I thought that meant talking nonstop." They both smiled, understanding the misunderstanding that had once stood between them. As months passed, the man slowly began stepping into a new role without realizing it. He spoke at a small community gathering once, invited by someone he had helped. He did not prepare a speech. He simply told parts of his story, not the dramatic parts, the quiet ones. Afterward, people thanked him. Some cried. Some stayed silent. On the drive home, he felt shaken. "I don't know why they listened," he said. "Because you didn't perform," his daughter replied. "You told the truth." Truth, he learned, did not need decoration. The taxi became less central to his life, though he still drove. It was no longer the place where he hid. It was where he connected, where he carried conversations that mattered. One evening, while driving alone, he realized something important. He no longer feared being forgotten. That fear had once controlled everything he did. It had made him work harder, stay quieter, hold back love. Now he understood that being remembered had less to do with effort and more to do with presence. At home, his daughter was making plans too. She spoke about expanding her work, about helping families reconnect, about creating spaces for honest conversations. "I think I want to focus on parents and children," she said, "especially the ones who stop talking." He felt a deep sense of pride. "That's important work," he said. "I wish someone had done that for us earlier." She smiled softly. Maybe we needed to become those people ourselves. Not every day felt hopeful. Some days were heavy for her too. She carried her own doubts, her own exhaustion. On those days, he learned to sit with her the way she once sat with him. "You don't have to be strong today," he told her once. She rested her head on his shoulder. "Thank you." That simple exchange felt like a miracle. One late night, as they walked together after dinner, she said, "Do you know what scares me the most?" He waited. "That one day this will feel normal, and I'll forget how close I came to losing you." He stopped walking and turned to her. "Then we'll remind each other," he said. They stood there, under the quiet streetlight, as two people who had learned the cost of silence and the value of staying. Life did not slow down. The city kept changing, but inside the man, something stayed steady. He was no longer chasing redemption. He was living it. And for the first time, he understood that healing does not announce itself loudly. It shows up in ordinary days, in shared meals, in honest conversations, in the choice to stay, again and again.